doorway of a C-47. So we said, oh, they're going to make us jump out of that. We don't want to chicken out. Oh, boy, that would be ignominy deluxe. We would get chicken, you know. No way are we going to get chicken out. So we went up and jumped down on the ground. And the lieutenant happened to come along, thank goodness. And he said, what are you guys doing? And we told him what we were doing and why. He said, well, we haven't finished building that yet. There's going to be a cable that goes from that doorway down to the ground. And you drop 15 feet, the length of your static line, and slide down. We didn't get hurt, luckily. 35 feet was just... Do you know that tower washed out more people than the jump towers did at Benning? So I'm going to tell you a war story. They're all eyes and ears, you know. And I said, when I came into Holland, I'll go past what happened then, too. That's another story. But anyway, I got into town, and Azan, we're on our way to Eindhoven to free up Eindhoven and get the British through to go on up to Market Garden, up the road to Berlin, supposedly. And I came into town, and the people were all out there in their finery, waving their orange flags. They thought they were liberated. No way were they liberated. They kept cutting that road right and left all through the whole campaign. Anyway, and suddenly a machine gun opened up down the street. Everybody, the Dutch were gone like that. They'd been there, done that. I stepped back in the doorway, and an arm came out with a spoonful of cherries and was feeding me cherries. This is war going. The machine's going past my nose, and she's feeding me cherries. And I never saw her. All I saw was I'd recognize that arm again, but I never saw her because I took off as soon as they stopped firing, you know. It's like you're eating cherries while it's going on. You know, the people are right in there in the middle of it, the civilians. Man, they took it. They took it. The Dutch were there. We went out. I was on tour with them on Market Garden last September, the celebrating day of '94. And there were about 10,000 Dutch people lining the road when we came by in our bus, waving and clapping and crying. The old people cry, they do. And to this day, they still honor us. That sure does something to your heart, I tell you. And Arnhem. And then there were 3 Canadians and 5 Americans. And that was something every single one of us adore the French. They would come out to help you without any arms or anything. Under fire, they'd come out and help you. That's the way they were. We loved the Dutch. It was something, I tell you. When I was wounded and I went to, after I got the guy set up, after we got all shot up and everything, 4 more came out and got shot trying to help us from Company E. And I was in charge of the battalion by that time, non-com in charge of the medic. And they came out with a long ladder, the Dutch did. First they fired their carbine at the house where the German was firing at us. And all 30 rounds went up. He had done something with a shear pin so it would fire automatic. And he had a double clip. And they threw that down. Then they came with a long ladder. Now, Bob Brewer, the guy that I took care of, looked like Ted Danson, tall, skinny guy. And he was told by Dick Winters not to wave his map case. Come on, boys. He thought it was John Wayne or something. Come on, fellas, we're going here. Come on. Today, when the enemy sees a guy waving his, you know. So they shot him right through the neck. And the guys thought he was dead because they dropped back, of course, to the woods. And this was a big field. He was out in the middle of it. Anyway, I eventually got shot and stuff myself, and 4 other guys too. And they the Dutch came out with a ladder for Brewer. They carried him, and they took him to the house. There were 4 houses there in a row. There's a picture up there that some artist had done it. And that it was commissioned by John Cork. They took him to one of the houses that the German was in. Oh, no, my patient's going the wrong direction, and they should have gone the other way. So I said, I'll be with you, don't worry. So I went, but I couldn't walk because when I got shot, It was right above my boot, and it laid it open all the way to the bone, like a lamb roast, you know. And it weighed though much, hardly at all. And I couldn't do anything with it. The Dutch helped patch it up. And then they took off with 3 of the other guys that got shot trying to help us. And there was a wagon track going right to that house. And I was able to get there on my own with the bad one up on the flat ground and the good one down in the ditch. I was able to, and there was a woman hollering totes at the end of the house. Well, that's where the Germans were. I thought somebody had shot one of her people. But I found out last September when I was there, from some people that the family lives there, and one of the guys had done a lot of research from Belgium. And it turns out the guy that was shot was the grandfather, a Dutch guy, by an American. He was shot by an American. And they said that at the time he shot him, this American was just crying and crying because he felt so bad about it all. But for all these years, I worried about, you can't do anything for a shot guy, he's dead. He was told me he's dead, you know. I knew that. And a very small house, but immaculate, typical what you can think of when you think of Dutch people, you know. Nice, cute little house, and all immaculate kitchen. We were on the floor, a bunch of us. And I had given myself a shot of morphine so I wouldn't go into shock. And it started to have work on me. I went like this. She caught on right away, went and got a bowl. And I didn't want to mess up her nice floor. There's another war story for you. I mean, these little vignettes that take place, you know, in a combat situation. Sometimes they're incongruous. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. But I'll never forget that either. She was grateful that I did that. And then there was a getting ready to get out of there and all that's another story. I hope that's true.
Yeah.
I hope that's true, that it's not a real camera. Oh, man. Oh, I get these half-hour interviews that turns into 2 hours. I have to do this. When I was a kid, I wouldn't say boo to a ghost. Now it's motor mouth. We're better than the regular infantry. See, at first I was infantry with Captain Sobel's group, Company E. I was in Company E. And then I became a medic in Company E. And then they started forming the medics after they had completed their formation of the regiment. And the colonel asked me if I wanted to be a medic. I said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So from then on, I was a medic. I like that. I like being a medic. Well, Jeeps, refrigerators, washing machine, you name it, we got it.
And did you trade them or did you use them?
No, we got them. And because we borrowed them from the hospitals or someplace that had brand new ones at crates. I spotted them. Wine, I got 100 bottles of Pomeroy champagne. And here's how I got them. I went there to get champagne for our guys, you know. Oh, we'd be happy to sell you champagne, but we don't have any bottles. So if you had bottles, we'd be happy to sell. I'll be back. Well, then they expect to see me. So I went back, hook up a trailer. We're going to get some champagne. You said there wasn't any. I said, yes, we're going to get champagne. So I said, now let's go out here in the field, in the Reims. I had seen these bottles sticking out of the ground from World War I out of the trenches. And they're sitting right there in the dirt and dust and everything else. And I got 100 bottles in our trailer, went to Pomeroy. We were in business, recycling now. We bought them, paid for it, but here it is right in their own backyard. They didn't even realize Americans are entrepreneurs.
What did you do with the champagne?
Well, it disappeared.
Uh-huh.
Then we had to go get some more. One time I went to, I was dirty as heck, hadn't taken a bath in a month, and I was in France, and I went to this hospital, and I saw showers there. Oh, I'm going to take a shower. Man, I'm going to take a shower. Well, they were officers showered, but I was a staff sergeant. So I got after I get my clothes off, they won't know the difference. So yeah, I went in, got nice and I was washed up, put it down, and a fella came in. Well, Lieutenant, he's trying to make conversation. I'm not answering him. I wasn't a lieutenant. So, and then he says, Captain? He looked at me, kind of young, you know. And I'm not answering him then. I was just about through. I wiped off. I said, "No, Staff Sergeant, but I'm clean." Oh man, he couldn't do anything about it. He was bare butt, with jump ropes tied up, and guys were down below. Why we didn't go out the doorway, I don't know. There was some reason for that. But we had it out the window, and it was going to jerk me out the window on the second floor. It was going to bang out and going out the window like a flying duck or something. And a lieutenant came along and said, "What are you fellas doing?" I said, "We're trying to get this up through the window, and it's getting too much for us." So he helped us lower it to the ground and then went on. He said, "You better use the doorway." He was smart, that's why he was a lieutenant.
And you're stealing the wardrobe from...
Yeah, we took it
Yeah,
home, put
yeah.
our clothes on.
Ah.
We weren't really stealing. We didn't get out of the Army. It was still in the Army. Anything we took, like when we get a washing machine, I had them bury the thing in the ground about this deep, make a hole and I'll be back. And we were the only clean ones out there with nice clean clothes and everything. And Colonel Sink was trying to get his electricians to figure out where this chick, 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 chick was coming from on his radio. It was coming from us, But the rest of the troops around us were happy because we were nice and clean. The medics are clean, at least. What the heck? We did a morale business there, too. And to the front door, and while we're returning the Jeep, another guy's stealing another one out the back door. We were taught to be entrepreneurs, actually. We weren't like the British waiting to sort out orders. We were given it. I called ourselves an entrepreneur army because we'd be assigned a mission. Now that's all you needed. This is your mission. Accomplish your mission. And we go in there. Now the British had to sort it all out and do all that stuff, But if the things changed, then you had to go back through all the commands and everything. We just moved in on it. And that's what I think made us successful. Now, whether the straight legs did that or not, I don't know, but I'm sure a lot of them did. Because Americans are that way. A line up between division, where we were right next to them, at the aid station. I was with the regiment then. And to some company out in the field. And some regiment, rather, out in the field. And a shell hit at the bottom of the wall and knocked him off. He knocked off him. He was scrambled, went right back up, did it again. Another shell knocked him off the wall again. Back he goes again. The third time he got it up. But if he hadn't accomplished that mission, there would have been no communication. That was his mission. And he was going to accomplish his mission. Now, to other people from the outside say, "Boy, that was heroic," And I guess in the terms we use it was. But that was his job. And he was going to accomplish his mission. That's the way we were. And he did. And he came in one day, shortly after he did it, I think it was. And he had stolen a Jeep, too. And I was using it, was jumping out of neutral all the time. Oh, man. And he threw this pillow on my desk. I was a house physician for that hotel. Staff Sergeant Medic. Anyway, Air Marshal Tedder would come there. I'd have a speckled trout caught by Air Marshal Tedder for breakfast. All the stuff. Well, what I tell you that? What a war. Anyway, he threw this on the desk, and he said, "How about sitting on that instead of that hardwood chair?" And I said, "That'd be better, I suppose." So I sat, a little lumpy, but it was okay. And then 2 days later, a woman and 2 MPs came in. She pointed right to that pillow. They cut it open, and inside were little cotton packages in cotton with diamonds and rubies and emerald and sapphire, complete unmounted, just but polished, stone white. And the whole thing was full like this. If he'd just stolen that, he'd have been better off. I was with the division then, and the division surgeon the colonel sent me over to find out what we might need because we're going to convert the hotel into a visiting center for people coming from all over the world, from Russia, England, you name it. And I reported back. I said, "It's all taken care of." "Did you move in?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, he didn't object to it. I may be the house physician." Well, my first task was to cork the staff up because they would change diets, you know. Then the next task I had was to cork them up because they were going to free them up. I got the order mixed up. Anyway, and then one day they called me and said there's somebody's down on the ground. He hit his head on a limb when he was riding the horse. I said, who is this that got? No, he says, a major so-and-so. I said, oh, a major, he'll be all right. And by the time I got down there, he was up riding again.
Eagle's Nest?
Oh, every day.
Tell me about it.
Huh?
It's a long walk up that hill.
No walking. I drove this Jeep that would go into neutral all the time. Oh, man. Oh, no, I never walked up there. And one time I was coming down with a British General, Morgan. American, but British General. And he wanted to know if I was going down. I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, can I come with you? I said, sure, of course. And I went down. I was fighting that thing in neutral half the time. We were going. I mean, we were moving like this, you know. And he says, you got down here mighty fast. I said, well, I had to get back to the dispensary because of time, you know. And I made some baloney thing like that. He didn't know we almost went on. Well, I used to go off on purpose. When I had somebody else with me, there would be some parts of the road that were there were grass between the two levels of the U-turns, you know. And I was just sliding down the side. Down there. Why go all the way around when you can take the shortcut? And they'd be changing underwear on the way down, you know.
HBO series, Band of Brothers.
Oh, it was pretty good. I would say most of it was pretty accurate. Most of it, some of it Hollywood stuff put in there, but like the romance between Jean Rowe and a French girl, there was nothing like that. And I know Jean Rowe, of course, and I remember, Chris Lingwell, I know his grandson. He's a police officer in Dallas, and his wife is a police officer in Arlington. Yeah, and I said, I remember your dad, your grandfather, so well. I can see him squatting there. He wouldn't sit, he would squat on his heels, you know, when we took a break. What? He said, I said, yeah, he used to squat. He said, well, I thought when the reenactor did that for the movie, you know, for the miniseries, that he just happened to do that as a matter of his own choice. I said, no, that's what your dad used to do. Oh, I mean, your grandfather. He was so tickled to get that little vignette of his doing that, the way his behavior.
Watched the series as it came out, or?
No, they didn't have the only medic they involved was Jean Rowe. He died too early.
Did you watch the TV show when it was running, though?
Well, I went to the Emmys Awards too in Los Angeles. Yeah. Oh, was that nice? The HBO people were really, really special. And Dick Winters was there. Strayer was there, who was in charge of our battalion. There's some guys didn't like him. I remember he was sitting way back on a wheelchair. I said, Colonel Strayer, come on up here where the rest of us are, up here in front. And I could hear a guy, I don't want him up here. I couldn't believe it. Although I didn't have that much faith in the guy either. But like when I was always with the staff when I was up there, because I was in charge of the medic. I'd be with the battalion surgeon, you know. And so I'd hear all the conversations going on. Clarence, that's his S3 guy. Clarence, where the hell are we? I said, oh, you don't even know where the hell we are. We're going to combat with this colonel. And one time we were out on the Salisbury Plain, and they have these pop-up targets, you know. They'd pop up and they'd shoot. Bullet rifle would go off here and then over there. And about 4:30, the crows came in by the thousand. And we were right at the edge of the woods. Every gun in the place opened up, and not one crow fell. Not a one. I said, oh, man, we're going into combat. They can't even shoot a sky full of crows. What are we going to do? That would be a fundraising thing for veterans and for service people in the police, you know, the law enforcement. And it's also the logo for the DEA, Drug Enforcement Organization. They are I know a number of them, and they are the nicest guys. Just had lunch with one of them and his wife, both of them DEA people, Saturday. It was so nice. They like to say grace when we have lunch. You wouldn't expect them. The next day they're out there chasing the bad boys, you know, or that day. You may have met him one time, I'm not sure, because you were at all the ITOA meetings.
Chuck.
Was Ernie Batista.
Okay.
You know him?
I know.
He is the funniest guy you ever saw in your life. He was almost caught, too, by the DEA, by the bad boys in Colombia. He's now selling drug identification equipment. They can tell what drugs these are. And he says, well, there are three things there. One is a sense of humor, my sense, a perverted sort of. And also meeting so many nice people. You're one of them, of course. And I think that's paramount. And what's the other one? Oh, don't die. That's important too, but I don't pay much attention to that one. It's going to happen, you know. One time, and they look at me like I'm Methuselah's brother. You know who he was? He was the 800 or 900-year-old guy in the Bible, and they figure I'm his brother. So I said, they always have me up front making a damn fool out of myself, and I usually do. But anyway, I said, I'm going to let you in on a secret on how to attain longevity in your living. They're all these young guys are all listening. Oh, they want to get to be old. They're young guys. I said, it's very simple now. Pay attention. Don't die. Oh, man, they were reaching for their guns instinctively. You know, they carry them. And I said, I'm going to be Swiss cheese up here with my big mouth. You should have seen the look on their face. That was worth it.
From England, how did you set foot in Europe? Did you fall from the sky? Or,
Yeah.
You know?
I fell literally from the sky, literally. Because I didn't go into Normandy because I was in a hospital, a major physician in charge of the regimental medics said I better go or I'm going to die because it swelled up all the way around. It was coming down to this close. So I went, and it was about 2.5 weeks, about that long, yeah, before D-Day. And I was in the hospital when D-Day happened. So I wasn't with my people or anything. At the time, I felt very bad not being with my people with all that training and everything. But in retrospect, I guess the best thing that could have happened. I know when Pepping, he was in Normandy, when he jumped, he ended up with nothing on him. Everything got stripped off on the jump. It was a low jump, fast jump. But anyway, I liked to be in a paratrooper unit was the fact that our generals were there with us. Major generals, lieutenant generals were right in combat, right with you, made the jumps with you. They weren't out there in Washington or someplace sitting on their haunches, you know. That I liked. That I liked a lot. I had a lot of respect for that.
How did you get in? What was it,
Oh,
dark?
man. Every jump I ever made, I made standing and ended up standing up. I would slip my chute and pop it open just right, bang, hit, and stand up. This one, a combat jump of all jumps, I jumped, and then it was a beautiful day. And then about 75 feet off the ground, this darn fool who has a whole country of Netherlands to jump in, goes through my chute. And it collapses my chute about 75 feet, and I see that because it hadn't quite got to the point where the ground comes rushing at you. And it seems like it anyway. And it was just before that. And then I hit hard. When my chute collapsed, and I hit hard, and then he landed on top of me. And feet first, standing up. And he said, where's the enemy? I said, you're standing on him. If I had a gun, I'd have shot him. Then I had another guy that he was right near me. And he said, I can't doc. They call all the medics doc, except for the doctor. They called him by rank. And doc, I can't walk. I said, you better learn, get the heck out of here because they're firing on us now. You better go. He said, but I can't walk. Oh, God, I can't walk either, hardly. So I said, all right, I'll take care of you. And so I set up a Novocaine syringe, and I gave him a shot in I gave him a shot in the ankle. And I said, now take a drink of my water. He said, I've got water. I said, take a drink of my water. My water was not water. It was 180 proof ethyl alcohol. I had 2 canteens that I carried for combat. I never drank much water, so I didn't carry water. There's plenty of water in Holland. Man, everywhere. Anyway, he takes a snort of this stuff. And, whoa, he jumps up in the air. He doesn't hurt it anymore. And he said, which way is the enemy? He wants to know where the enemy is. I said, go to blue smoke at the edge of the woods there. Go. And he took off. Now, neither of those guys I ever saw anymore. I don't know what happened to them.
What did you do then?
Well, I went into town, then I told you the story about meeting this lady, the thing, and then that night I was getting dark and I was sleeping. Oh, there was a motorcycle sitting right in the road by itself, and Moose Holliger, one of the lieutenants, they were telling us not to touch any equipment or anything because it could be booby-tracked, you know. He just starts the thing up, drives away. What? We could have done that. And then there was, when I got into town, by the way, I heard a noise, rum, 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 a vehicle being tried to start, you know, in the back of some home. So I ran back there, sort of, as best I could, and there was a German went over the wall, and there was a little pickup truck. It had full of medical equipment on it. And so I got my safe-cracking medic buddy there, and he came in and started the thing, and they used it from then on all the way back to France. Company Street there in Saint-Mary-Église. No, I mean not Saint-Mary-Église. In Petit Marmalade. And I happened to pick up my hand, and it was still on a gear shift, and the gear shift came out. So I handed it to the guy next to me. I don't know who he was. And then I took the steering wheel. I went like this. There was nothing loose about it. I just pretended to take it off. And I was handing it to him, supposedly. He jumped down. He didn't want any part of that. So after that, I just parked it and left there. That was the end of it. But it had been hit by shrapnel and everything else by that time. Saw a house back there, or some building back in the dark. And so I went over there, and in Holland, the rural areas, the house and the barn were all one building, half of it house, half of it barn. And I opened the door and went in. There was straw on the floor and everything. So I went to lie down and I went to sleep. Well, the next morning, I felt like there was a whole wall of hair next to me. A big wall of hair. I looked this way, there's no end. I looked that way, there's no end. And finally, I got to perspective, and it was a big porker, huge pig. If he'd have rolled over on me, I'd have been about that thick, about that big, flat. He was huge. And he had nuzzled up to me, and then now the 3 of my guys were in the room, in the next part, in the house part, sleeping in bed. And I'm in the pigsty. I didn't run into the captain, or lieutenant, what was he, Cameron? Neville's name was, until the next day when we were on our way to Eindhoven. And that's what I said, when they were calling for a medic up in E Company. I said, E Company? I got 4 medics in there. Why are they hollering for a medic? I'm going to check it out. And he said, goodbye.
In your trip to Normandy?
Yeah.
For the 75th anniversary,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you project? I know you see things in the future.
I've been a number for me or for the.
What do you think will impress you?
Well, I just want to see how much evidence there is of Europe breaking up, which it is going to do. France will be by itself. Germany, I don't know whether it'll be under Poland, but Poland will be the center. And as we see it now, talking to Virginia, she's pretty good on this kind of stuff. And the Scandinavian companies will be a group. England will be by itself. it's going to break up again. So I'm anxious to see how that shapes up. But they can't, up there, towns, their whole towns are gone to the ISIS folks, you know. They can't do a thing about it. They let them come in and take over. And they tell you that, too. It's not what it was. My wife and I went back to Europe in 1948, and it was still almost the same old Europe it was prior to World War II. But they were still under rationing in Europe and England and France and everywhere. But we had a wonderful time.
You've been back many times?
Well, I've been back to France and to Belgium and Holland, but primarily Holland and France, Normandy, about 5 times, I think. I didn't even talk about the war when we were first. Oh, people always ask you, what'd you do after the war? I said, well, to me, the war was an era of my life. When I graduated from high school, that was over with. That was an era. I went to college for a couple of years before I decided one summer to join the Army as a paratrooper. And I got to be one, and the war took on. You know, I went out into the war, and that was over, and that was an era of my life, and that's over now. Now I go on with my life. Go back to school, finish up, and then when I meet, even when I met Ralph Olson, we'd meet once a month. He lived in our general area. We wouldn't talk about the war. We'd just talk about families and what ordinarily folks would be talking about. You know? It wasn't until after the Band of Brothers came out that this all changed a lot, and my kids were all growing out of college, that I never went to, I only went to a couple of reunions, that's about all. I'm not one of those kind of joiners, you know. And, but it's been terrific going back, seeing people. I've done some interviews. I've just done an interview and a video for a woman by the name of Christian Taylor is doing on the French attitude and approach toward the American liberation of Normandy, which I haven't seen anything of. Usually our view of it and interpretation of it and everything. But I think that's a worthwhile one. It ought to be pretty good. And it's all started with this little girl that had a dress made for her out of parachutes during World War II. City has a card, she'll give it to you, show you what it's like. That we're involved with Christians, so many nice people, so many. Boyd is another one, she's really terrific. Holy mackerel. She has a son that's in the 101st. I have a nephew that's with the 101st. He's in Baghdad right now. Yeah, he's been to Afghanistan. He's been spent a year in Saudi Arabia. He's a Apache helicopter pilot, major, and they cannot leave their compound in Iraq. There's a compound about 3/4 of a mile square or something like that. They cannot leave it. Now, what's the sense of being there? You can't leave it. Those people aren't our friends, they're our enemies. I think.
Europe. Do you see things that you recognize, or is just that doesn't register? Objects, buildings,
well, I was
places?
in combat in Normandy. I was in a hospital, but Holland I do, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there was a police friend of mine. He's retired now. His name is Vanderpool. And he'll put me in his car and we'll go all over the place. Go to the jump zone, and where I was on a field taking care of that lieutenant when he was wounded and all stuff like that. Take me over, meet his wife again. She's really nice. And then Eindhoven, oh, that gets to be quite a thing. And then big parade. There's one guy that had redone 80 vehicles, Army vehicles from World War II. Took them all the way down to Nutten Bolton, put them back together. and he had about 60 of them in the parade. And then another thing, there were about 600 children, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, in the parade. The children participate in everything that goes on, so that they get a full awareness of what liberty is about. You know, they say prayers, they say poems, they sing songs, they play music, they do everything. They lay wreaths down when we go to some event. They're pretty immersed in what it took to get to be free again, because they went through terrible times for 5 years. The Dutch did.